Hello everybody and welcome to video 20. In the last video I um, added this method make special tick, which allows a metric to add a new tick basically. Um, Also I added this cached property to the previous poll method. This allows this query to get executed once, so if you call this method multiple times, it doesn't do the query multiple times. It just does it once and then it stores it, and then next time you call it, it just pulls it from the storage. And also I removed this self poll result thing and also self tick. I just removed that because I don't think it's very useful. And I'm going to remove these print statements don't need to be here. I'm going to remove them today. And then also the main thing I did was I built out this optimize uptime metric, which it tracks your uptime, but it does it in a more efficient manner so that it doesn't store as much data, and it is just faster to render the graph, and also it uses less bandwidth. And so it uses this make special tick that I defined up here, and it just kind of built it out. And again, I'm going to remove these print statements because they don't need to be here, and that's it. And in this video, I'm going to add a new command line argument. So on this 22 tick, I'm going to add no catch. So it doesn't catch an error. So like when one of these, this force failure, which returns an error, the way it works now is that this main loop, where is it? Right here. This main loop will catch any exception and then just restore. It'll just store the result as the exception that got raised. And that's good when it's in production, but when we're in development, we want that error to be shown to us, and we want more importantly, we want the traceback. So I'm going to just add that option to this. So we'll just say catch equals true. By default, it will catch the error, but if catch is false, then we're going to essentially skip this part, and it'll just raise the exception so I can see it on the command line and see what the problem is if something goes wrong. Because in the last video, this happened. When I was building out this metric, this optimized metric, I accidentally, when I copied this over, I had this, it just said on. So there was two of these with the same name, and then it was calling the wrong function, and it took me a while to figure out what the problem was because I didn't get a traceback. If I had had a full traceback, I would have immediately known what the problem was. So first thing, just get rid of these. I'm going to turn this into just a comment. Also, I want to copy this over here to this. And then, yeah, so down here, if before the loop, we'll say if catch, then to catch. So if catch is true, then we're going to catch the exception. If catch is false, then it'll just catch nothing. And then here we'll just say to catch. And then also I want to update the management command so that it actually pulls that in. So we'll add a new argument. Call this to catch, no catch. And then down here. And since this is no catch, so it'll be true if we want no catch. So I have to reverse it. Now we'll test it. So we're gonna, this is the wrong one, it's this one. I'm just going to remove this. This is not necessary. And we're going to bring this back. I'm just going to do all of them. So now when I run this without the no catch, okay. Not sure why that's not working. Oh, it's an underscore. Turns it into an underscore. Yeah, so now without that argument, it just catches the error, and then it continues on with the other ones. But now if we go no catch, there it is. It gives us the trace back, and it stops the loop. And so now if I have a mistake in my metric, it'll show me the traceback. And so from now on, when I'm developing, I'll use this argument here. But in production, you wouldn't use that. You would want to actually log the error. So now that's done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to change this right here. So this uptime poll, right now there's kind of one little sort of issue, and that is this right here. We don't really want the uptime at the time of the poll being executed. We want the uptime at the time of the tick being created. Because down here, when we make the power on, we take the tick date and then we add the uptime. And it kind of assumes that the uptime was created at the time of the tick, because it's just the way, that's just the assumption. And so what we're going to do is we're going to, for here, we're going to say now is self.tick date if the tick is set, because if the tick is not set, then we'll just use date time now. And another problem is this from timestamp is going to be time zone unaware. It's going to be naive of a time zone. And this is going to be time zone aware. And you can't take a time zone aware and subtract a time zone unaware, because I think it'll either crash or it will not it'll either crash or it'll issue a warning. So I'm going to test it right now. Yeah, so we didn't set the tick. So it's we have to set a default for this. There we go. So now when we access it, it doesn't raise an exception. There it is. And so in that case, it was using this this value here, because self.tick was false. So it was using this date time now. But down here we want, we're going to say uptime, and then so we're going to store, and then this is uptime. So we're going to take the tick of this instance, which was passed in from here, and we're just going to pass it in to this uptime tick. And so now when we execute the uptime, it'll be according to it'll give us the uptime with relation to when the tick was created for this loop. And so it'll give us a more accurate uptime reading. So now that's done. And the next thing I'm going to do is on this page, this is the front end, the JavaScript. I'm going to refactor this. So I'm just going to, the problem is this gets written to the document. So if you go to the page and you view source, well, I'm going to refresh this. Yeah, so now it shows multiple graphs. And if you view source, you'll see it prints this here, and then it prints it again, and it prints it again. And it's kind of redundant, and it's it adds more bandwidth because there's more stuff being written. So instead what I'm going to do is I'm just going to copy this, and I'm just going to move it so that it only shows in the document once. And this will take div, and then basically all this information will be passed in up here. So it takes the div name, it takes the x and the y, and then the title, and then the y title. So title, and then y title. I'm just going to put this here. This is the div. The y, the x. This is the title. This is y title. And then this is going to stay because it's the same for every graph. But I need to move this up so that it's happening before. I'm going to put it here. And so now we're going to replace this with this call. There it is. Now it's printing out less data to the document, and it's just more efficient. Everything looks to be correct. Yep. And the reason why I did this mostly is because in the future I'm going to change this so that instead of taking just a single x and a single y, it takes a list of x's and a list of y's, and then from there it produces multiple plots, or multiple traces rather. I'm going to call these a trace. So like for now this is just call this traces. And then eventually I'm going to expand this so that it does a loop, so it allows me to have multiple traces. And also a way to add options. So like right now, we can also add other like items here, like other features that change the way that the graph looks. So I'm gonna just leave that there. And so now I'm going to test to see that the graphs actually work. Yeah, make a new tick. Yes. We need to make this aware. So this was the bug I was looking at before. You can't do a naive and a not naive datetime. You have to make it naive. So I'm going to fix that. Up here, yeah, right here. So we have to do, I think it's like make naive, something like that. I think that's correct. Time zone. The import time zone. Okay, now I remove forced error. Just return 0. Wrong one. There it is, it worked. And you can see this one, it's not making ticks in the middle. It's just two, one here and one here. So it's like going to render really fast. There's only 2 points. Okay, everything looks good here. And that'll be it for this video. In the next video, I will finally get to doing this directory size. And then once that's done, I will modify this so that it takes multiple x's and y's so that it can generate 2 graphs or two traces for a single graph. And eventually what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove this Ajax entirely, because what is happening is it's sending the x values over again. So if you look at the command or the console, if we look at these like system load, if you look at the x values, there's only 2 of them, but if you take note of them and then look at this one, it's the same values. So like 1231, 16.6, 1231, 16.6, and then 16.48, 16.48. So the x values are being sent twice, and so and these x values are large. It's, you know, I don't know how many characters this is, like 20 some characters. And so if we have, there's 100,000 5-minute periods, 105,000 5-minute periods in a year. And so for a year, 105,000 of these is a lot of data. And to have to send that over for each and every graph you have, so like right now there's only 3, 4, well, this one doesn't count, but there's 3 of these graphs. So it has to send all those x values 3 times, and so that's not very efficient. So eventually I'm going to redo this so that there's a, I'm just going to call it like graph data matrix, and it will kind of be a list, and it'll have the x value and then y1, y2, y3, and then x2, y2, y3, y4. And so then when I do the plot, instead of passing x and y, it'll be like columns. And so this will be like we'll pass in like 1, it'll be like 2, 3, or 6 or something like that, and then which will correspond to whichever row we want for y. So if there's two y's, maybe the columns will be like 1, 2, so it'll be 1 and 2, and it will generate, it'll just pull value 1 and value 2, and also the x. And so the x's will always be the same, and so we're only sending it once, and that's ultimately going to be the goal. But for now, I'll do that in a future video. But for now, I'm just going to have it just be x and y. And then commit this. And that's it. And I will see you next video.